Hi, Misha here, and this is going to be a bit of a different video for us in a way, as it's on the 1911, or specifically the Colt M45A1, which we have done videos on, but it's been a very long time. And I have both versions here. This is the so-called Custom Shop version. And over here, still in the holster for right now, is the production line version. This is an older one with the original Cerakote baked on finish. And this is a newer version with the PVD ion bond type finish that was introduced a few years ago. So I thought, yeah, we would talk about the history, some of the different versions made over the years, and what the M45A1 is and decidedly is not. But, you know, let's first take my old pistol out to the range and run a few rounds to it for nostalgia's sake. How about that? We'll come back here and start the video up proper like. M45A1. Plus M45A1.
Good.
So of course, yes, it shoots. I've had this pistol for a number of years, and it's always gone bang. It works with ball, hollow point, standard 45 ACP, plus P, which is actually what you just saw me shooting. I think J had a different type, but yeah. And since he loves 1911s and really liked that the Marine Corps adopted a new pattern in the 21st century, I will dedicate this video to Chris Bartocci. So with that, the story goes back to this, of course. This is a World War II government 1911 A1. Which, including the original 1911, was standard issue throughout World War I, World War II, with the last deliveries to the Marine Corps of new guns in 1945. But of course it was continued in service through Korea, Vietnam, and so on and so forth, being rebuilt as necessary. In 1985, the Beretta 92F was adopted as the new M9 and was intended for all 5 branches and to replace older 1911s. Many in the Marine Corps were resistant to this. They really like their tradition and their 1911s in the Marine Corps. Well, your average jarhead couldn't do a whole lot about it. But Marine Special Forces, Special Operations units could. Especially the Marine Expeditionary Unit, Mishaco. So by 1986, they pretty much ignored the M9 and went to what became known as the Close-Quarters-Battle-Pistol, eventually the M45, which were essentially custom-built guns done at the Marine Corps base, Quantico, Virginia, by the unit armors, very skilled gunsmiths, and they would actually just take original 1911s. Again, they haven't had new frames since 1945, so they would just rebuild existing guns, pretty much gutting them and only really using the frame and slide, although modifying it. And since these were custom guns, they were fitted together. They had to serialize the parts to make sure they stayed with the right guns. They were done to have a improved trigger, They kind of hand-selected the best remaining 1911s. They deburred them, cleaned them up. They would go through a whole series of upgrades, including going to the newer pattern of, well, pretty much all the small parts, you know, your mag catch, your safety. They, for example, will start using King's ambidextrous safeties. They would use a lot of Ed Brown, Wilson magazines, also Wilson mag catches. They would use our Barstow barrels and a lot of the M45s. They would start going to a Novak sight. They would modify the original slide, giving it front serrations. Yeah, they would upgrade the trigger. Usually it was 5 pounds or less pull weight. And this would be issued, or at least available, to Marine Special Forces throughout the 90s. Actually, one of the kind of early proponents of modernizing the M45 in the Marine Corps was Colonel Robert Young, who gave a very detailed outline of what to do to make the pistol still relevant in the soon-to-be 21st century and which parts to use. But then, after 2001, the so-called War on Terror began. War in Afghanistan, Iraq, other places. The Marine Corps needed more M45s, even though they were just being issued to special units, than really Quantico could provide. They just couldn't build them fast enough because this wasn't their only project. They had all kinds of other things, rifles and whatnot. So, at first they would buy some slides from Springfield because they were running out of old slides. But then they would start examining commercial options known as COTS purchases. And this would lead to Kimber receiving a purchase order in 2003 for a customized variant of their 1911, adopted as the interim close-quarters-battle-pistol, the ICQB, and if you wish, ICQBP. This would be followed in 2005 by the Marine Corps buying about another 150 1911s from Springfield. These would be their professional models. And so these would be the first truly, all new frame and everything 1911s in the Marine Corps since 1945. This helped a lot. And of course, during this period, Quantico was still custom building guns. But still, the war in Iraq was lasting longer than they expected, so on and so forth. And so that eventually led to this. By 2010, the powers that be at the Marine Corps essentially updated their COTS requirements and announced they would be selecting a new pistol, not for full adoption amongst the Marine Corps, not even full adoption anything, just kind of a contract. And you had, of course, Colt. They would submit a variation on their 1911 railgun. Springfield, too, would throw its hat into the ring with a version of its loaded operator. And a few other companies would as well. Interestingly, I don't think Kimber did. Throughout 2011, the Marine Corps would evaluate its options, and then on July 20th, 2012, it would announce Colt had been awarded a contract for the new close-quarters-battle-pistol, the M45A1. Now, the initial order was for 4,000 guns, with an option of up to 8,000 more, but initially just 4,000. So a lot of people quote a number of 12,000 of these delivered to the Marine Corps. while that was an option on the original contract, I'm not actually sure if that was ever met. This was to replace the M45 as well as the ICQB. And the Marine Corps did not consider it a new sidearm. They considered it an update, a modernization of an existing, hence the name M45A1. Because it really did have many of the same features as older guns, just it became standardized and was an all-new production from a factory. It wasn't built by hand at a custom shop at Quantico. Well, by 2013, these were in Marine hands, and they were taking deliveries at least up to 2016. So with that out of the way, what do we have here? What's the difference between the standard production model here and the so-called custom shop, or whatever you'd like to consider it, model here? Well, M45A1. William Keyes, retired 3-star Marine General, and at the time CEO of Colt, referred to the M45A1 as a highly enhanced version of an already excellent combat weapon, or to that effect, for whatever it's worth. So what do we have here? Well, we're going to talk about the two major editions, although the Colt has done a lot of these over the years, as they do, some of them very small runs or different variations. This is the 1070 CQB from the Custom Shop, and this is the 1070 M45 from the standard Colt production line. For the first off, of course, it's chambered for 45 ACP, modern loads as well as traditional. We have a full-length grip, full-length slide, both made of stainless steel. We have a 5-inch National Match barrel that is polished, accurized. Some have claimed it's called hammer forged, but I don't believe so. Pretty much it has all your typical bells and whistles of a modern 1911, like a skeletonized Commander or ring style hammer. Colt calls it enhanced. We have an extended upswept beaver tail with the bulge in the back. We have an improved lightened trigger. The original M45 needed to have a 5-pound trigger. This was required to have more like a 4.5 pound with about a 0.1 of an inch reset. We have textured G10 Grips. One interesting feature, it's a flat mainspring housing, serrated but flat, so kind of 1911 style more than A1. It is made of metal, of course. It has a lanyard loop. We have a true Picatinny rail under the barrel. The railgun this is based on has a rail under the barrel, but it's not true 100% mil-spec compatible. This is, and to achieve that, the M45A1 has a slightly heavier, dutier, thicker frame than the railgun. Also, while it has front and rear side serrations, they are a different pattern from the railguns. little bit bolder, less finely done for better grasping. These have Novak low profile, high visibility sights dovetailed into the top of the slide. Some have also reported Trijicon brand sights on these. Internally, this is a Series 80, as it has the firing pin block, which frankly for a duty gun is a good thing. If the gun is dropped or hit severely, it doesn't have the chance of discharging like a Series 70 might. It has a dual guide spring under the barrel. This reduces felt recoil, allows it to fire hot plus P ammo, and just generally extends the service life of the weapon. It also has a national match bushing on the front end. It has the extended ambidextrous safety that's pretty common on 1911s these days. However, that's the only ambi control. The mag catch, the slide stop are not. The ejection port, as again is pretty common for most modern 1911s, is lowered and flared, but it still uses the internal extractor. It's not a small gun, 8.5 inches give or take, and weighs about 2¼ pounds unloaded. It's all steel. As for the magazines, initially the Marine Corps considered going to 8-rounders, like those offered by Wilson, but in the end decided to go with 7-rounders, 47 Wilson mags, as the standard mag for this gun. But of course, any standard 1911 mag will fit. What else? You know, it is a 1911, for better or worse. It just has the modern bells and whistles. Again, like I said earlier, pretty much the M45 had most of these, if not all of these features. Let's talk about the differences between the production model and the custom shop one. Well, basically, the production model, like mine here, is the same as what is shipped to the Marine Corps. It just comes off the standard production line. No real special attention paid. The custom shop is obviously handled in Colt's Custom Shop. They use an oversized barrel that is fit to the rest of the gun for potentially better accuracy. They further refine and tune the trigger. And they pretty much just do additional hand fitting, close inspection, but it really has to do with a more accurized barrel and trigger system. And it ships with a green Pelican case. It's 2 layers and comes with this here Otis zippy cleaning kit and also a factory test target. The standard version just comes in your typical Colt blue box. These, either one of them, have shipped with Wilson mags anywhere from 1 to 3, just depending on which production run from Colt you're talking about. Because Colt has done several versions. Now, there have been some changes, rather high profile. The earliest guns were marked with 3 stars for general keys, and then USMC. Well, quite early on, for whatever their reasons, the Marine Corps did not like this, and they told Colt to quit marking them USMC. Not just the civilian guns, as you might think, but even the ones they were receiving. So after a certain point, quite early in production, all M45A1s lost the USMC marking and were marked with the 3 stars and M45A1. I think the idea was the USMC wanted to apply their own markings, not Colt. So yeah, the earliest production ones will have those USMC, but then later will not. Another very high-profile change came in 2015, towards the end of that year. They went away from this tan Cerakote finish to what Colt calls a deco bond or deco bond finish. And they would start shipping these to the Marine Corps, and then the custom shop would start using the new finish on their guns by the end of 2015, and then after that they would start using the new finish on the production guns in 2016, so that at the end of that year all M45A1s would switch. Now the Cerakote finish is a sprayed on and then baked on type finish. It's paint basically. The deco bond is an ion bonded finish. That it's related to PVD coating. It uses vaporization to actually impregnate the metal to a small degree with the new finish. And the reason for the switch: the Cerakote did a very good job of protecting against corrosion, moisture, rust, pitting. But the Marines found that it wore off quickly. The ion bond finish is much more durable because it's part of the metal. However, it does sacrifice a bit in the way of protection of the metal. So it is a trade-off. Now, I'd say most people like the coloration of the new finish. It's a darker brown, bronzy color, whereas the original, as you just saw, was more of a tan, or some people call it puke color. There's a lot of rumors about the Cerakote failure. Some say that the only reason Colt used it was because the Marine Corps' insistence, and that Colt even objected, but there's no evidence of this. Colt also says that it was improperly applied by a subcontractor. Who knows? Doesn't matter. Change was made several years ago. So those are the two big changes. Production models would continue through 2016, but actually for a time the custom shop guns would be discontinued. Then they would come back with all kinds of weird color designs, including all black, gray, black and gray, black and tan, and then finally back to the all tan. And then they would also introduce a new feature to the custom guns, this checkered front strap. It's very rough, but also not annoyingly so. This is a common thing that the Colt Custom Shop will do to all of their guns. And so it was kind of one of the latest features for the last production run. This gun is a current recent one. And like I said, this one is one I've had since 2013 or 14. See, no checkering. By the way, this holster rig I have is original. It came from Iraq for this gun. It's been said that it is kind of hard to find holsters for these because of the kind of unique rail. It's not untrue. These do have nice triggers, but then again, it's a 1911, a gun known for having a nice trigger. So what about the future of this pistol today? We're at the end of 2019, getting into 2020. So is it over? M45.
Had 3 rounds left in the mag.
19. So what about the M45's future? Well, even before it was adopted, the Marines did field an alternative in a way that some of their special units would do. The Beretta M9A1 first appeared in 2006 and is essentially a modernized M9 with a pick rail, polymer controls that are more corrosion resistant, and PVD coated magazines. And the Marines have used these in limited numbers over the years. But of course, alongside. And then in 2015, this, or at least one like it, sorry, I don't actually have a modern Glock 19. My 19 is a Gen 2, so I grabbed the 19X. In February of 2015, the Marine Corps announced that it would be letting its Special Forces units carry the Glock 19. Now, a lot of people online, as the internet is wont to do, immediately assumed that that meant the M45 was completely out, and that the Glock 19 is the new standard pistol in the Marine Corps. No. It just meant that the Glock 19 was a tool in the toolbox that Special Forces could use in the Marine Corps, so it was optional. Now, it is worth noting that at the end of 2016, they did say that they were going to be pulling all their 1911 pistols, older M45s, and presumably M45A1s out of service. However, as of this year, 2019, there are still reports of the M45A1 in the field. And then, of course, have to mention this guy here, the Sig Sauer M17, which was adopted last year for all branches, which presumably the Marines will also use, because it replaces the Beretta. So who knows? The higher-ups in the Marine Corps love their tradition, love their 1911s. However, they're not the ones doing the fighting on the ground. They're a little on the old side to be doing Special Forces work. So the guys in the teams in their 20s, maybe at the most 30s, don't have a lot of nostalgia for this gun. They would definitely prefer this, or even this. What do all these have in common? Capacity. 15 to 20 rounds or more. Yes, it's 9mm. Yes, physically, 45 is a bigger bullet. However, 45 is also a slow bullet. Modern 9mm loadings are pretty effective. Now, of course, militaries have to be careful which 9mm they issue, but still yet, having 15 to 20 rounds over 7 to 9 at most in a 1911 certainly has advantages. Also, the trigger. While this has a very nice trigger, it is still single action with an exposed hammer. So if you want to carry it, you have to carry it cocked and locked. Otherwise, yeah. Whereas with the Beretta, you have a double action with exposed hammer. You can carry it locked, and then of course have the double action trigger to fire the one in the round. It is a much safer, easier to use system. Of course, Glock, they have a bunch of internal automatic safeties, and the military version that was proposed for the trials even had an external, although the ones the Marines have, I presume, do not have safeties. And of course the M17 does have a safety. Now these are not technically double action guns in a sense, but they are a lot safer to carry with one in the tube than a 1911, even a Series 80. So yeah. In addition, weight. Like I said, this is nearly 2.5 pounds loaded. The Beretta is still a heavy girl, but lighter because it has an alloy frame. But then you get into your Glocks and your M17s with their polymer frames, and they're considerably lighter than either one, which is certainly an advantage on a sidearm, which is, to be fair, a second line, last resort defensive weapon for the most part. So, yeah. In addition, polymer has a lot of advantages when it comes to corrosion resistance. And it can also be made more ergonomic with a slimmer grip or a different textured grip. The Beretta is known for having a very chunky grip. This one has the laser panels on, so even chunkier. But look at this. This is not much thinner. Thanks to these G10 grips, it's a very wide grip itself. Yes, a 1911 is very accurate, or can be. But so can a lot of these other guns. And let's be honest, combat accuracy is a lot different than match accuracy. I could go on and on, but really what it boils down to is the current generation of Marines does not feel the 1911 is a good fit for them. And why would they? I mean, this is nearly 2020. Marines today can be as young as born in the 21st century. So why would they care about a gun that's over 100 years old? Yeah, it's had a couple of great facelifts, but honestly, an 18, 19-year-old kid wanting to carry this is about like an 18 or 19-year-old kid wanting to go to bed with a 70, 80-year-old woman. I don't care how many facelifts and how much plastic surgery she's had. That's just weird. Even the Beretta is kind of getting a little long in the tooth. Funny thing is, the Glock's not much younger. Of course, the M17 is a baby design compared to the others, but these are just new generations. So, no, I'm not a fan of the M45. I think it was a regressive step. But they only purchased a few thousand. So, yeah, it was a special. It wasn't like it was the major issue gun. Plus, with General Keys at Colt and everything, it's a good fit. I will just end with kind of mentioning the ex-Marine guns that came out. They were returned to Colt, about 1,000 of them, because of the Cerakote finish wearing off. And we don't know when Colt got them back, but we started to hear about them in 2016, early 2017, and they were sold off to the civilian market. Pretty much intact. They did use a laser to etch out, kind of X out the Marine markings. Not the factory ones necessarily, but the ones the Marines had. From what I've read, the numbers seem to be nearly half and half. About 530 were unissued guns, so little to no wear, and about 470 were, shall we say, well-used guns that yes, there was wear to the Cerakote, but also a lot of wear to the bore and rifling. So it seems like those that had these guns were putting a lot of rounds through them. It's said that in training, a Mishaco soldier might do 80,000 rounds a year through his pistol. That's a lot. So those were on the market and made a splash for a time, a year or two back. If nothing else, it is significant because after so many decades, century of service, this was the final version of the 1911 to be ordered by a U.S. military branch and delivered in any real numbers. So there is some significance there. Plus that Colt sold the same gun that they were shipping to the Marine Corps to us. I mean, there's no technical legal reason they shouldn't, but yeah, they did, which is cool. You know, Beretta and Sig have done similar things. The Custom Shop gun, while a better gun, frankly, more tuned, probably more accurate, is not the same as what the Marines have received. So if you want the best shooter, get it. If you want one as close to Marines, either get a production 1070 M45 or try to find one of the ex-Marine guns. The reason I couldn't find one that was in good enough shape, and that, you know, because they were shot out and stuff, and for the money. If they were $1,000, why not? But they were bringing actually more than brand new commercial guns, and since the commercial guns are identical, it just didn't seem logical to me. This, by the way, is a M9A1 from Beretta. Not any kind of special edition, just what they did. Like I said, this is Glock's 19X. And this is the standard P320 M17. Not the commemorative edition, but it is the military variant versus the commercial one. Well, this turned into a lot longer video than I anticipated. I was kind of worried about what I would say about this gun, but then I got to digging into it and kind of got engrossed in the story today. Anyway, I hope this was a good historical rundown. Like I said at the beginning, it is an accurate gun, and it is a reliable gun. But it's a 1911 and, 2020. It's just, yeah. Anyway, I've done a couple of videos on the general history of the 1911, so if you're still interested, you might check those out in the American Historical playlist. Any questions or comments, please post them below. And if you could, like, share, and subscribe. And if you'd like to help support the channel, please check out our Patreon page. This is Misha, and also on behalf of Jay, we will both catch you very soon next time.